Sabi boy.
Hello, hello, hello. Um, Thanks for watching this video or for even starting the video. Earlier today, Femi and I had a conversation with three young professionals who live in Qatar. Reason for doing this is the World Cup is currently happening in Qatar, but it goes beyond football. We've had more of politics than actual football. So we thought we'd speak to people who live there, get their opinion on what life is like there, their opinion on what some of the things in the media, um, yeah, and just have a general. We just had a general conversation. Let us know what you think about the video. Feel free to drop comments down there. Remember to like and subscribe if you like what we're doing. Um, One thing to mention is they did turn their cameras off, not because they were scared of any backlash, but because one of them's a teacher and she didn't want her students finding the video and sharing on the internet or all over the internet, or I don't know. But hope you enjoy it, guys. Thank you. I mean, you guys just open the floor and tell us everything that's going on there. How is life over there? Should I move to Qatar? What's the atmosphere around the World Cup? Yeah, if you guys just tell us everything, everything about Qatar, I think that's a good starting point.
Okay, I guess I could start. So I've lived in Qatar for 11 months or so now. Prior to Qatar, I lived in the UK for 20 or so years. And obviously, I was born in Nigeria and lived in Nigeria before I moved to the UK. My experience of Qatar has been positive. As with in general, as with anywhere, it has its good sides and its bad sides. For me, mostly the worst thing about being here is being away from everything I'm familiar with, my family, my friends, my social circles, all that. But in saying that, I've found that it feels like there's a huge expat community here, and to some extent, everybody is open and warm and happy to make friends and talk to people and spend time with people. So I've had a great social life here. I know the perception about socializing in Qatar is that, number one, the biggest thing is that everyone thinks you can't consume alcohol. They probably think you can't, wear clothing that's not covered from head to toe, or they probably think you can't go out clubbing, things like that. I've found that for me, my social life has been fairly normal. You can consume alcohol in certain places, and like clubs, they do have clubs. You can go to the hotels will sell alcohol to you. You can socialize as normal. So social life has been fairly positive. Work is a different culture out here in terms of work for me anyways. It's different to what I'm used to. It takes some getting used to. But again, I found settling in, relatively easy. So
When you say work is different from what you're used to, is that because you work too many hours, or because you people aren't nice at work? Why would you say?
well, you mentioned hours. Actually, I'd say that my work-life balance here is a lot better than it was in the UK.
Okay.
I at the moment I work from around 7:30 to half two-ish, three.
Wow.
So shorter hours than I did in the UK. In the UK, even though it was 9 to 5, like if I left at 5, it was kind of like, where are you going? You're part-time. So and from that perspective, yes, it's better here. But the parts I've had to adjust to, and I'm not sure if that's necessarily anything to do with Qatar specifically, or specifically to my company or my team. It's been a very different dynamic to what I'm used to. And again, like I say, it's probably specific to me because prior to here, I worked with a much bigger team that was a lot more familiar with my subject matter. And here I'm sort of setting up my team that I worked with in the UK. So everything is new to everyone. And so like with anything else, when there's change, it's difficult for people to adjust, and there's a bit of a push and pull kind of situation. So and learning how to approach people, learning how to get them on your side, learning how the culture works in that people, if you send them an email, from my perspective, kind of bulk, like, why you, what are you, have I done something wrong? Or it's almost like you have to take a different approach. It's like a softly approach. Pick up the phone or go to their office and chit chat about how you think they're so fantastic before you then kind of ask what you want. So it's a different, less abrupt approach, and people tend to take their time a bit more. So again, that's why I mean in that it's culturally different. It's just not how life works for me in a bank in the UK. In the UK, there were a lot more, let's just get things done, right? So here is a different approach, but it's nothing that you can't get used to, basically.
Okay, fantastic. And Abena, is that sort of similar for you? And what's your experience like in Qatar?
Well, Qatar's been home for about 7 years now.
Oh, wow.
That I was in Kuwait. I was in Kuwait for a year, and then before that, I was in London. So I've had the opportunity, I guess, to, well, for me personally, it's not what it's being made out to be. I'll put it that way.
Okay.
I do feel that, the fact that I've been here for 7 years is quite telling. I love living here. As Aboro said before, you do have a good work-life balance most of the time, but then again, my field is different to hers. My job has afforded me the opportunity to meet different walks of life. I work in an international school, so I am able to come into contact with lots of different people with different backgrounds. And you do learn a lot about the country, because obviously through the students, I've learned a lot, and just generally being here, you pick up on a lot. And Qatar's changed quite a bit since I've been here. It's forever evolving, like one day you see a patch of land and then like 6 months later, there's a big building on it. It's forever developing. There's like lots of things that are happening. I like that it's got a happy medium, in the sense that if you want a quiet life, you can live a quiet life. If you want to go out all the time and do all the kind of Dubai-ish kind of things, you can also do that too. Okay. But it's not for me. It's a safe haven. It's a nice place to be. It's quiet. It's chilled. The expat community, like Abara said, is really big. So you do it's essentially, you do create your own family here as well. So for me, it's been a great experience so far. It's not something that I regret. I absolutely enjoy being here.
So some of this negativity we're hearing, I mean, the alcohol situation, I mean, you guys said you could buy alcohol. Where is that message lost? Because my perception is you can't buy alcohol, you can't drink alcohol. There are people in the streets watching you, and you get arrested for most things.
No.
So where...
I mean, I wonder where that information has come from myself, but really there's a distribution center that you have a permit, you're given a permit, and then you go and get it. And you can also get alcohol in hotels. Okay. And there are a lot of hotels here that are easily accessible. And it's not like London, where some of the hotels are quite exclusive and you can't get into it because of this, that, and the other. You can, if you can afford to go, you can go.
Okay.
So that whole thing, to be perfectly honest, you can access alcohol in hotels and at QDC, which is the distribution center. So if you have the permit, why not? You can get it.
Okay, so it's quite similar to Dubai then, because I've been to Dubai, I haven't been to Qatar. I had alcohol in Dubai. I think I got alcohol from duty free. Yeah, the hotels and alcohol. So it seems like it's quite similar, is it?
Yes, it is. I mean, if you're a resident, you can definitely go to the distribution center. Okay. If you're a resident, given the permit, you can do that. But if you're a tourist, you can get alcohol in any of the hotels that sell alcohol.
Oh, brilliant.
So to give a bit more context with the permit situation, it is easy enough to buy alcohol. However, the process to get the permit is that you have to go through work. So basically your HR says, this is how much money this person is earning. And based on that, you're allowed to spend a percentage of your earnings on alcohol. So there's a limit to how much you can purchase, right? You can't just go there and buy, any amounts you want. So there are restrictions, even with the permit, as to how much you can actually purchase, but I doubt many people meet those thresholds.
And I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing, controlling how much alcohol people drink. I've seen people who've lost fortunes on alcohol, being alcoholic. So I guess that's sort of a control that I don't think is necessarily the worst thing.
So basically, what you're saying is that there is alcohol available, but it's just regulated, and that all the stories in the Western media and stuff is unfounded, I guess.
Yes, that's correct. But specifically around the World Cup, I think, first of all, Qatar has opened up more places around the town where you can purchase alcohol, right? So before it was in hotels or clubs or licensed places. Now they also have something called fan zones where they now sell alcohol at. And the one thing that I guess they held strong on was that you can't sell alcohol, or they refuse to sell alcohol in the stadiums.
Okay.
Now, from my understanding, and when I saw, the opera on the internet, I did a bit of research, and it turns out that Qatar isn't the only country where they don't sell alcohol in stadiums anyways. Apparently in France and in Spain and in Portugal, that's you can't buy alcohol in the stadium. So I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, and even here in the UK, so you can buy alcohol in the stadium, but you couldn't take it into the for football specifically. I know this, so you couldn't take it to your state. You have to drink it behind, behind at the bars, but you couldn't take it into the open space, into the open stadium. So, yeah, it's
not recent, wasn't it? Like, I think they introduced that a few years ago, I guess.
From the first time I've watched a game in the UK, which is many years now, 10, 12 years, it's been the situation that I've noticed. Ben's got a funny name on this thing. Ben, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Yeah, just to add to what the girls have said, I largely agree with it all, and I'm in a slightly different situation to them, where I only arrived in Qatar in August. So, just still going through the transition of moving from the UK to here. I think what I'd probably raise from that's interesting is, for me, I felt overall in the UK, the atmosphere was becoming very negative in the country from a news perspective. When you're thinking about cost of living, obviously COVID impacted everyone, but just a general energy when you turn on news and so on. And for me, that's probably been one of the most intriguing things whilst being here, that it's a completely different mindset. Everyone that is here is an expat, and obviously in a reasonable position. I say that because that's basically the circle that we're in, though. And what I'd add to that, though, is just to just give my thoughts off that I've just discussed with other people. It's not necessarily on topic right now. Is that as a black man as well, it's different. There's probably more class differences here than there are race. So, for instance, what I'd say, just from my perspective, I've worked in the city for a period of time and so on, right? And in the UK, but I feel that if I'm in certain neighborhoods, I will still be seen as a threat anyway, regardless of wearing a suit or not, if that makes sense. Whereas here, it's very different. If you're wearing a suit and you have an English accent or anything like that, you're seen in a certain way, which is a positive way. People are really intrigued that you're from the UK and so on and so forth. And don't get me wrong, there's still some negatives to that, because if you are, let's say you're someone from Bangladesh or certain parts of the world where you've got a certain group of lower paid workers here, they may be seen in a different way, if that makes sense. So the divides are a bit different, but overall, the energy is completely a lot more positive, in as much as it's a prosperous place right now, and the outlook is a lot more positive as a result of the direction of the economy and all of these things. So that's one aspect. I think the girls touched on it to a degree in terms of so there's freedom here, but it's probably in a bit more of a controlled way, if that makes sense. So the alcohol one is an example where you can get your alcohol from one place, but you can get alcohol, or you can drink it wherever you want, but it's in hotels. So it's just not in the street. So I feel like probably this might be the same for a lot of other Middle Eastern countries as well, where you can do pretty much what you want, but it's in a controlled way and it's not in a public space. And I think probably that for me, just my thoughts on it, that is very different to the British or maybe Western or even USA, that psyche of just, I can just do what I want. Yeah. I need to have complete liberty to do what I want when I want. So, when you think about the lockdowns and stuff like that, people were going crazy at the concept of, you're telling me not to come outside. How dare you?
People are trying to keep you safe.
Exactly. We're not used to that in the West. So to come to a country where you're told you can't drink alcohol where you want, you can't go to a football match and throw stuff in the air. I live in Wembley in the UK, and I went to the European, the Euro final, and basically that day was just complete chaos. It was actually just like a war zone. It was madness, and people enjoyed it. Especially after what happened in COVID, all that lockdown, all of that stuff. They just went berserk and they loved it. They loved every second of it. So to come from that and then to come over here where you can't, where you're told what to do, I think that's where a lot of the animosity comes from, alongside the LGBTQ plus IA stuff. When I say, that's not to minimize it when I say stuff, I just don't know all the details, right? Yeah, but just that's probably my last main point. It's intriguing that this country is a newer country than the UK. If you've seen anything about their legal systems or their labor laws and all of these things, they're still in their infancy compared to the UK. Interestingly, when the UK, when England last won the World Cup,
yeah,
it was illegal to be gay in the UK when they last won it, which is an interesting point, because that's the case of it. That's the case right now. Same-sex marriages were only allowed in the UK as of 2014. That's not that long ago, So, but now there's this whole thing of, now we are here, we must educate the Middle East and everyone else around the world about how things should be done. But they're on a different timeline here. The country's newer and they're getting there. And the spotlight of the World Cup has accelerated stuff anyway. But in short, I just don't. I feel very uncomfortable with the UK stance of the negativity towards this country, when there's a lot that's not right in the UK. I just don't feel we're in a position to be saying to anybody what should be done from a moral standpoint. But yeah, that's my thoughts overall.
All right, that's great. That's really great. It's a great insight into what's going on in Qatar, because it's a good thing you guys are on here to tell us what your experience and what you've seen and what you experience on a daily basis, because what we read in newspapers and the tabloids and on the internet is different over here, especially. Now, I have a few questions I want to ask. You understand? It's around this whole thing. I'll ask each person, probably if you can answer and stuff. The first thing is, what's all this furor about migrant workers, and what do you know about it? Because we're over here, so we only know what the press tells us, or what Gary Lineker or someone else tells us. But what are your thoughts, and what do you know about this issue with migrant workers being treated poorly, a lot of them dying and stuff? If I would start with Oboro, what exactly do you know about it?
To be honest, I don't have many details about that. I know that there have been a lot of stories. We've seen those stories too. And that was what brought it to my consciousness, right? So physically, obviously you do see workers going to and from work every day. My understanding is that they put them up in some accommodations, some distance away from town, bring them in every day. They do the work and they get paid not that much. That's what we've seen. I mean, that's what we've heard rather. I mean, it's clear that, Qatar isn't perfect by any means. And, you know, I mean, I don't know. From the stories that we've read as well, obviously, it would be better if people got paid more, right? In terms of deaths that we've heard stories again, I don't know specifically what's going on, but what I do know is that a lot of the construction companies that are doing the work here are owned by the West. So in some ways, you can't put the blame on the Qatari government because a lot of these foreign countries have a role to play as well. So yes, you know, things could definitely be done better. People could definitely be treated a lot better, but I think the blame doesn't go to just one party or one individual. There are more parties at play than the Qatari government or than Qatar.
Okay. Thank you very much for that insight. I'll go to Abina. With women, because I was reading something, I'm not sure yesterday or today about.
Abina wanted to say something in addition.
Yeah,
Okay,
I did.
go on.
Sorry. Yeah. So with regards to the migrant workers in particular, I think another thing that is not reported is things like the kafala system have been abolished. And that was a system that essentially was not good for the workers. I'll put it that way. But Qatar has gone through the reforms and they are trying to change things, and they have made changes which clearly have not been acknowledged. And similar to what Oboro was saying is that, you know, from my perspective, a lot of the companies here are the building companies, the construction companies are European companies. They are Western-based companies. So ultimately, so let's say, for example, if there's a minimum wage that the government has set, ultimately, it doesn't necessarily mean that minimum wage that they have to pay it. They can choose to do better, but it seems like their profit margins is what is more important, essentially.
I did see that.
And once again, that's also something that's not being acknowledged, because really and truly, where was all this outrage when the building work started? Why wasn't that looked into?
Okay, that's good. Staying with you, Abina. With women, because as I said, I was reading an article online yesterday or today about this woman. She's not an MP now anyway. She was saying when she went to Qatar a few years back, she was walking with a group of men, and she was the only one that was stopped. And they asked her which of the men is she married to, and someone had to volunteer. Say, okay, she's my wife and stuff. Are women? Obviously, we know the Arab and GCC, if I'm right, countries. They have their laws they have their culture and their laws regarding women and stuff. But is it difficult for a woman, like living in a country like Qatar, and especially maybe someone like a Black woman? How is life there generally? Can you give us more insight into that? Because what we read in the newspapers and the tabloids might be different from what exactly is happening on the ground. So if you can just tell us what it is for a woman, especially maybe like a Black woman or an ethnic minority woman in that country.
I mean, the first thing is that I'm not really sure that woman was even in Qatar in the first place, because generally men don't approach, you know, they don't eat you directly. And if it might be like a smile or a wave or whatever, but it's not as direct as that. I've never been approached or stopped. And I hang out with Ben and Oboro all the time, you know, and we've never ever been approached and asked. Ben, I'm sure, has never been asked who is he married to, or in all my time here, in all my time in the Middle East, it's never happened. And
Wow.
And so that in itself, once again, really, was she in Qatar? I'm not sure, but hey, let's leave that one. Moving on to the second, as a Black woman in Qatar, truthfully speaking, there is a lot of curiosity about my background, my culture, you know, but I don't feel sexualized in any way like you probably would do in the UK. This is, and also, I don't know if Abora would agree with me, but generally when my friends and I speak about this is the safest we've ever felt.
Wow.
It's a place where you can actually leave your house and probably not lock the door and nothing's going to happen to it. You know, and as a woman, I'm not followed at night. Like, none of those things happen. Things that I would have faced in the UK, where men might become a bit aggressive, a bit touchy-feely. Because of the culture here, it does not happen. So
Wow.
I would be lying if I said that I felt any fear whatsoever, to the point where when I'm in the UK, I kind of forget myself a bit. that relaxed because I forget where I am. Not to say that the UK is like this incredibly horrible place, but being here, especially in terms of men approaching me and their conduct, I honestly cannot say that I felt as though I was in danger at any point.
Okay.
Laura, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. You never really feel preyed on or unsafe, or I don't know. Yeah, never really.
And there's can you guys hear me? Because I've just plugged in this thing.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
there was a lot of construction in the background. With regards same-sex marriage or homosexuality and those sort of topics, do you guys have any friends who are either gay or lesbian or transgender or any of that? Or have you met anyone there who's
I have met a couple of people who are homosexual in Qatar, yes.
okay? And how do they feel? I mean, I don't know if you've gone into that conversation with them at all, but
To be honest, I can't speak to their experience, so I don't know. They haven't expressed to me that they feel unsafe, or they haven't expressed to me that they feel like Qatar has embraced them. So I can't really speak to that, to be honest. But I do know people here who identify as homosexual, and they live their lives as normal. But in general, I think with regards to relationships, Qatar is modest, so to speak. So really and truly, it's not like in the UK where you would see people snogging in the streets and stuff like that. People tend to keep their relationships private. You don't come across PDA in any way, shape, or form that I experienced anyway. So, yeah.
So there's no sorry to interrupt. There's no anti-LGBTQIA like movement or drive by the system or the government authorities as reported. Like they're not really. There's nothing that is kind of a pushback against them, because what we read there, as I said earlier, is that it's as if they're hunting gay and those kind of people. Is there anything like that there? Probably if you watch the TV, there are messages that are like anti-LGBTQ, or maybe newspapers or something over there. Is there anything like that?
From my perspective, there's never been that sort of message. But for me, it's a live and let live kind of culture here, where, if you are whatever you choose to be, fine. As long as, so I think it's the thing about it sometimes being explicit. I haven't seen things explicitly, and I think people just go about their lives in a quiet manner and do whatever it is that they have to do. Because ultimately, if we're talking about LGBTQ rights, etc., when we look at the World Cup in America in 4 years' time, are we now going to challenge their bills as well on gay rights? Because there are some states that have banned it. So really, I think there's a level of hypocrisy when it comes to that. And once again, we are not looking to, when it comes to the West, we're not looking to our peers, our counterparts, to say, hey, you're also, it's a similar thing, but no one seems to be talking about that or draw comparisons to it, if that's the narrative that they want to push, basically. But to answer your question, no, there isn't. I personally, I can't speak for the other, but I personally haven't come across anything anti-LGBTQ.
Thank you for that. I've got one more question anyway. It's for Ben. I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here, yeah, because at the end of it, I know you guys are kind of saying your own parts, what you've experienced and everything in Qatar, but like, okay, let's just say as an Englishman, and looking from my own point of view, if I was to think like that, what exactly is causing all this talk and all these reports about what Qatar is doing and why they're not qualified to host this World Cup and their record on human rights and everything? What exactly is pushing it, and what, as I said, what is causing it? Because it's a lot here every single day. Even the opening ceremony of the World Cup wasn't broadcast
Broadcaster
by
here, yeah.
by certain companies.
So
like
you're saying there's no
BBC.
smoke without fire, yeah?
Yeah, exactly. What exactly is causing it? What exactly is driving all this pushback and everything? What exactly is driving it? That people are wearing One Love armbands and everything. What exactly is pushing it?
I think it's a number of things. I think the timeline, when we think about when the World Cup was won versus now, a lot's changed in the mentality of people. The whole woke era is here now, right? So you know, you've got the wokery, you've got BLM as well. You know, all of this different energy in terms of you know, really being forthright about what you think is right and wrong, and really stamping it out a real moral outrage to things. I think that whole approach wasn't quite as much there in the past as it is now. So I think that's one aspect of it. I think personally, I think there is an element of Islamophobia in there as well. I think that is something that's not really looked on or spoken about quite a lot. So you still got the connotation of Muslim or Muslim countries and so on equals terrorism. So I feel like there's definitely just a blatantly racist undertone there, because when you look at the last World Cup, which was actually in Russia, right? Russia at the time had already taken over part of Ukraine, right?
Crimea.
Yeah, I remember
exactly.
they had out their jersey.
Exactly, right. So where was the big outrage about that? You know, that didn't matter. And then the next one is going to be, okay, great, hooray, America to the rescue again, right? And you know, they've done all sorts of different things, and I'm not really particularly anti-American anyway, but you know, there's a lot of people that have died on America's hands, right? So why is this Muslim, or you know, why is this Arab country being singled out? I think there's an element to it, which is part of that as well. And then beyond that, I think also there's also just a media-driven agenda that it keeps it in the news cycle for it to be, this is our standpoint. This lets anger and negative news sells better than good news, right? And so I just found that so appalling. The not showing the opening ceremony, because it just didn't fit the narrative. If we're gonna be really
that was
negative,
disrespectful. I think, that was a bit disrespectful.
It was horrendous.
Yeah,
it was hypocritical to some people as well. Anyway, it was hypocritical. Yeah,
exactly. That's censorship in its own way. You know, they're actually doing exactly what they say these countries do. You know, they're not showing you the good stuff because they want you to feel negative about it. And anyway, that's just a few thoughts that I've got on the why.
I read a headline on Daily Mail saying, you know, it was Morgan Freeman that I think he was part of the opening ceremony. They called him a disgraced actor. And in the comments, people are asking, what has he done to be disgraced? You know, it's just weird. But guys, thank you very much for the answers, because at the end of the day, it's always good to have different points of view. You understand? If some people just gobble up what they read in the tabloids without knowing what exactly is going on, you know, on the ground, not exactly knowing what's going on in Qatar and everything, you know. So it just, I really, your views have been like an eye opener. Like now, to be honest, I knew most of the newspaper tabloids and headlines and stuff were exaggerations and stuff. But now that you've actually elaborated on what exactly going on there, now it's a different. To me, I already have a different perspective now. You know.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. Same thing. I think I texted her. I'm like, what's really going on in Qatar? You know, because the news here is all negative.
Yeah, just to say that, I mean, from my point of view, Qatar is by no means a perfect country, but really, where is perfect? You know, like we all have things that we need to do better. So yes, it's good. Yes, we could improve, but same goes for most places. So yeah.
Would you
just on that point? Oh, go for it. Go ahead.
No, go on. Say what you want to say. Sorry to interrupt you.
Who's going? Sorry, me and who's going?
Yeah, Benna. Yeah, Benna. Yeah, let's hear it, Benna.
Echo what Oboro said. this place is not without fault. It has issues like anywhere else. But I think, adding on to what Ben said earlier, I think there's an element of change that perhaps people are also frightened of. And I feel that with countries that are usually on top, which are no longer perhaps in that place anymore and in that position anymore, that there is that element of fear of what's like, because now you've got countries like Qatar coming up and all these other countries, and all the countries are also bringing. For me, Qatar hosting the World Cup is an excellent thing. It shows a region that people may not be familiar with, and it's a culture that, frankly, you may not understand, but you just have to try to embrace it in the best possible way and to respect what they value. And that's all it boils down to, really.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to contribute? I think Ben wanted to talk with you, but I'm not sure who wanted to say something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The last thing that I wanted to say, which is just been on my mind, right, which I find so funny. It was part of the question that you asked earlier around the immigrants and the treatment of immigrants and migrant workers and stuff like that. I find it so funny, the UK stance on it, where, because in reality, they don't like immigrants.
I know what you want to say.
UK does not like immigrants. We do not like immigration. We haven't liked it for years. We've got a hostile approach to immigration. We treat the Windrush people. Priti Patel, you've got Suella Braverman. It's just so anti-immigrant. Why do we now care about how migrants are treated here? It doesn't make any sense. That's the part that blows my mind. But anyway, not to end on a negative note.
No. So yeah, I get what you're saying.
I want to say a massive thank you, guys. I'm cautious that you guys have got Kiss Daniel coming to Qatar tonight.
Sorry, I have one question. Just one question. I won't take your time. If you were to choose a country to live at the moment, forget work, forget everything, probably you're in a good position, forget family and stuff. Would you choose, if you choose between Qatar and the UK, where would you choose? Each person first. I think let me start with Abina first.
Oh, that's a hard one. Right now, where I am in life, I'll choose Qatar.
Okay, that's good. Oboro, you go.
I would choose Qatar at the moment because I only just started earning tax-free. I'd like to do that.
I'm thinking of relocating to Qatar,
Finally, Ben.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm not going back anytime soon, man.
Wow. Thank you guys.
Yeah, big thank you to you guys. Great insight, really. I couldn't have dreamt of more, because hearing it through the news, I don't like to just depend on the news. So hearing you guys who are there talk about it is just really good stuff. So Femi and I are going to be doing like a review of the show later and trying to somehow find a way to merge this video into that video. We've just started a podcast and we're figuring things out. We want to go very organic. We don't want to get any sort of professionals in to help us. So maybe we'll have to do that tonight though. But thanks a lot, guys. Are we all going to Kiss Daniel tonight?
Maybe we're still trying to convince one person on this call to come along. So
I bet I think you should go. No, actually, Ben, I think you should go. It has to be Ben. Because if Ben joined at the hips, then it has to be Ben.
I'll be there.
First banner boy.
Yeah, first banner boy.
Exactly.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you for your insight.
We hope to be able to get you on the show sometime in the near future again to talk about other more positive things, I think.
Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more 2 Sabi podcast episodes.